Hey there, YouTube peoples. Welcome back to Socially Single. And today we're going to be talking about, I'm going to be sharing my thoughts and opinions, and I hope you're going to hear me talk about 90 Day Fiance before the 90 days, tell all part 1 and 2, and the couple we're going to be discussing in this video is Lisa and Daniel. Of course, please feel free to just put me on the background. I am verbose and loquacious, and so, I won't be putting too much on the screen. I will be showing the ridiculousness of how Lisa looks, and we're going to take it from there, all right? I said before when I did my first video about them going over their season presentation of their story that this was definitely a production that Todd came up with to come to us with the bullshit. And it continues. I don't know about y'all or you. I don't do well when people play with my intelligence. And I'm not taking it personally because this show wasn't made just for V. I just have an issue with that there is nothing believable about this storyline. There's just I think that Lisa and Daniel are both liars. Chronic liars. I believe that her daughter Faith is also a liar and has been groomed to be as such. And I think Daniel is absolutely an actor putting on a show for us. There's just certain behaviors and reactions that don't come off as authentic in response to certain situations, and that is what we're going to talk about today. And as much as I can be a talker, I'm not going to keep y'all on this because I don't think it's really that real. We left off at where Lisa was already in the States on their last time of filming, and Daniel was not communicative with her, and Lisa was breaking things off because she felt like Daniel was not treating her the same way that he was treating her from the very beginning. And so she was putting her foot down and just being done with Daniel. Now, we come to the tell-all. I'm going to be messing that up. So Lisa came to the tell-all with unnaturally, comically blue eyes. And I just don't know why. I mean, and everyone is free to express their own style and fashion. But she looked a fool. She looked a fool. And, she did not wear her wig. She came with her natural hair. And besides the eyes, I was okay with the dress. I'm going to put a picture of her up, of course, so I could see Lisa. But she had I think you call it a strapless dress on where she had her shoulders out. I think Lisa looked good. I do. And I think that they could have done more with her hair. However, I support that she's like, I'm not going to wear a wig because I'm proud of what I have, and I'm not going to fit into what I had to go through with Daniel with that. So that was her way of rebelling, and I'm all like, hey, good for her. That's not something I have a problem with overall when it came to Lisa. Now, something Lisa did that I thought was just, I was going to say out of character, but let's use the word that lacked a lot of couth. when you're meeting a stranger. First thing Lisa did when she got dressed up and she came out to meet everybody else, she interrupted Elise and Emma talking and went straight to Elise and said, when I saw you, I'm sorry, I don't like you. And Lisa's like, the fuck? Okay, why? Like, what the hell did I do to you? We just meeting. And Lisa's like, well, because you remind me of the bully who used to bully me in school. And you're tall, you're beautiful, you have everything going for you. And, you just have this approach that's aggressive and assertive. And I just felt you're intimidating. And because of that, you trigger my trauma from being bullied in school. Lisa is 53 years old, or 52. And Elise is 33 years old. There's a 20-year age difference. That was unnecessary. It's the only response I can come up with. It was completely out of place, unnecessary, especially when you're meeting her for the first time and there was no history between these two in regards to additional communication or context outside of you watching each other's stories. So on the same television that we watched ours, that we watched yours. So I just don't get that concept, but Lisa already came in with this idea of she was going to up her victimhood even further than what we might have been empathetic with giving her from her storyline. But she came in to be a victim and to double down on it, and I just wasn't a fan of it. I wasn't a fan. I'm going to be very, very blunt with my true feelings about this. I say, here we go again, another white woman who thinks that she can act and say whatever she wants, but wants to play victim when it suits her. And she is in the right environment with this tell-all cast because no one's going to hold her accountable for where she is wrong. And they're going to all just have her back blindly and not hold her to the fire and accountable. Fake storyline or not. That's how I felt. I think that she plays that role very well. I think it's why she has been married 5 or 6 different times. I think that's why she's found herself in many different situations. And there's a lot of things out the show that her sister has came out about her. And I gotta be honest, I believe all the allegations. I do. I think there's truth in all of it. And this time I'm going to share some of them. So I'll do that for sure. And I'll put a link down in the description of where I got those from. So let's get into where they're at today. They broke up and they got back together 4 or 5 weeks after the filming ended. And then Daniel and Lisa broke up again. And she was like, there was still communication issues. And in her time of need, Daniel was not there for her. Now, she also said that she has these feelings for Daniel and he keeps finding her way back into her life. And pay attention to what I'm telling you, Lisa says. She is saying that, Daniel, she can't seem to get over him. And when it comes to why she keeps going back and all that, something about him puts her in a position to where he's just back in her life somehow. And there's just no accountability, even with the fact of you are making a decision to go back to that man. Now, things get crazy real quickly because it's Daniel and Lisa we're talking about here, where Daniel says that they are married traditionally. Now, we have the scene where they went to the crazy guy with all the paint on his body who's supposed to be a priest in the middle of a dump, if you ask me, because that was not just it was literally down some alleyway that was not much traffic at all. And they sat down and he did some visual mojo, and we're supposed to believe that when she was there, and it was clear to us when there was preparation for Lisa going to him at this time, that she was supposed to make right for the fact that she had been with so many women in the past and been married so many times. So this was supposed to be her cleansing for her sins in order to be with Daniel. This is important because this is the foundation of where Daniel says, in that moment when we were cleansed, we got married. We got married. And we were bonded to each other. So we get the language from the priest that suggests that Lisa was not ignorant to what was really going on in that situation. And it was not brought up during the filming. We didn't get a confession of saying Lisa's now, married to me and so on and so forth. But that's what was supposed to be interpreted from the sham. Now, that's some bullshit. We have seen some culturally adventures when it comes to visiting different places, inclusive of Africa and Nigeria or wherever, South Africa, everywhere on this show. This is the most outrageous thing, right? And while Lisa was calling Daniel her husband and he was calling her wife, they were doing that already earlier on, just because that's what the goal always was. So, and we have definitely seen, what bothered me so much about Daniel's situation is there has never been a time where we have gone to Africa, and if it has, comment down below and correct my memory, where Africans don't play about their ceremonies at all. And I know that there's different tribes and cultures on Africa, and they're not going to always be congruent or synchronous with each other. However, we don't meet Daniel's father. We meet who's supposedly a cousin. And we don't know where Daniel lives. We're not in his hometown. There's just a lack of familial relations that we're exposed to as it relates to Daniel. And so you mean to tell me that you were going to have a wedding because you get, and I get that there are some elements where there was a goat that was sacrificed, but that was all for the cleansing, because he was so offended by quote unquote her past history and her laying with women to where he wouldn't even touch her until the cleansing had happened. So I cannot try to sit here and make sense of foolishness, right? So I'm going to go ahead and choose to move on. Lisa said that she was tricked, and Daniel came back and said that there was no trick, and apparently he told her that the fact that she was cheating, they're both cursed. So Lisa now feels like that she is truly cursed by a Nigerian priest, and because she's no longer with Daniel, and we find out that she made a new friend in Africa, via social media again, who she became friends with, talking about the negative aspects of her relationship with Daniel. Now he's no longer a friend, she said, that's my fiance. And so we meet the new guy named Ty, who is even younger than Daniel. Daniel was 39, probably now 40 at this point. And this guy is 31 years old. 20 years Lisa's, junior. And so I'm not going to harp on the whole age thing because that's not the ridiculousness of the situation at all for me. What I am going to harp on is I'm not ignorant enough to believe that, oh, Daniel and Ty both live in Africa or Nigeria, and as someone who has never been there, I'm just going to presume that, oh, they just know everybody from their Fiance. They know Michael, they know Uzi, they know all the people who've been on here. They know probably met Billiam and everything. I'm not going to presume that or think that. But I am going to tell you, based off the reaction Daniel provided when Ty came on the screen, they are familiar with one another in some capacity. They are not strangers. And it's interesting because Daniel kept saying how much he loves Lisa, and that is his wife, and he's committed to this relationship. He never really was held to the fire or answer because he avoided questions regarding who was the lady who was a supposedly labeled wife. We don't get into the judgment and the misogyny that he exhibited towards Lisa. We don't get into why Lisa acted and did some of the things that she did and why she started this relationship with the lie. When I bring the comment up about, I said in a previous video, I don't think it's right where we see many of these Americans have this secret and they already know that or suspect the very least that if they share certain information, this will be considered to be problematic with that other person. So instead of telling them the full truth and giving that other person an opportunity to choose whether or not they want to be with you or not, with that based off of that information and what they already may know about you, the Americans withhold it. They want to gain the approval, the love, the acceptance, to where now I'm at a point to where I can reveal this to you, but because you love me and I've proven what I can do for you and what having me in your life is, you won't put so much weight on this information because there's always a way out of it and we can just move past it. And so Lisa did that. You know, her daughter and friend both had told her, you need to tell Daniel everything because you're trying to mold yourself to be in whatever image that he is saying that you're supposed to be in. And that's just not how this should work, especially for someone at her big age, right? But we don't get into any of that in this tell-all. We skip past that. We don't mention it at all, really, whatsoever. And now Lisa has convinced herself that because she's cursed, Daniel knows things about her that he should not know. We don't know what those things are because I'm not sure why your husband or the person who you were working very hard to be your husband, there are things that he should not know about her that he knows. And also because of the curse, this is why she kept going back to Daniel and keeps Daniel in her life. That's what she said, y'all. And of course, we had Stig even had to come and say, Lisa, I rebuke that. It's only true if you believe it to be true. So you should not give any weight to that, right? And so the ridiculousness does not stop. So we bring out Faith. Faith is Lisa's daughter. She brings her out. And, you know, at first, in the very beginning when we meet Faith, I thought I was going to like her because Faith seemed like one of those children that because of the chaos that her parent had put her through growing up, that she was leaning on the side of being tired of that foolishness and was tired of her mom taking her through these situations of getting married, getting divorced, and her having to deal with whatever residual effect comes along with this. That's why I thought in the beginning. I thought that when she made this pact with Lisa about, hey, don't get married in Africa and don't get engaged in Africa, like keep me in the loop. I want to, please don't do something without talking to me because of what you have done in the past. I thought Faith was going to be that girl, that daughter who would hold her mom to the fire. Since me watching those first episodes, I understand that Faith is with the bullshit, and Faith is nothing but a grifter, and she thinks that she's more than what she is. And Lisa has her daughter way too involved in her relationships. And then when Faith begins to comment on certain things, then she needs to mind her business. Lisa has said it more than one time. Faith, you need to mind your business. Faith, you need to focus on what you got to focus on. Like, this is my business. This is my relationship. You don't have no parts. Lisa's one of those people, because Lisa likes to be a victim. So keep this in mind, y'all. You know how you come across somebody to where when they want your support, they're going to tell you everything. They want you have unfettered access to them, and your opinion can be as unfiltered as you want it to be when it benefits their victimization. But when it comes to disagreeing or accountability, now it's an issue, right? We had a part to where Lisa did not want to hear anything negative about Daniel from Faith in the very beginning. Now that you have this issue with Daniel, now Faith can be as harsh and as rude to Daniel as she can be because it benefits her. You're weaponizing your daughter. And V, what do you mean? She does this thing. She has Faith talk to Daniel. She has Faith get on the phones or the tablets and does the research to incriminate Daniel. Faith is the one who reached out to the contact named wife to see who she was. That wasn't Lisa. That was Daniel. That was Faith, excuse me. Faith is too involved. Way too involved. But it hit me when I saw what I saw. Got it. You are used to weaponizing your daughter to benefit you. Lisa's a trash parent and a trash person. Absolutely. I'm not even sure Lisa's fit to be called trailer park trash. I don't think she's even that good enough for that. She's a trash parent and person. And so when we get Faith coming out, it was clear that Faith really came out like, I'm here to support my mom. Mom, I'm going to give her a hug first before I sit down. It's that extra drama or dramatization of something that had already turned me off to her, to be quite frank with you. I got to go hug your mom before you, so you have to wait an additional 4 or 5 seconds before you take your fat ass on and sit your ass down. And then she kind of came out with this thought of, I'm for the hold Dane to the fire and I'm going to hold him accountable. She was weird. I'm thinking, okay, you finna sit here and really read Daniel and like go in, Daniel, on how he ain't shit ass man. And we ain't getting that shit. She thinks she's bigger than what she is, and she thinks she has that mouth on her, and you're not that girl. Faith is not that girl. But Faith is willing to be the mouthpiece, in my opinion. She's willing to be the voice. She's willing to be the verbal expressions of what Lisa supposedly feels and wants to say. And that, to me, is a problem. So we get to the part where Faith's big news is, I can't stand Daniel because my mom was sick and had to go to the hospital, and she wasn't allowed to tell me about her going to the hospital because Daniel told her not to tell her. Really? You expect us to believe that? as much as Faith knows, 'cause apparently they're always on TikTok grifting, and as many comments as Faith has about this situation, and as much as Lisa even said, I keep getting sick so much because of the curse. Because keep in mind, everything's because of the curse. You didn't know about your mom going to the hospital? So Lisa works somewhere in the medical field. She works at a hospital. And Lisa apparently had to have surgery as well. Apparently. Because I'm not sure I believe any of this bullshit. Where are you? As much as you are up in your mama's business, and y'all probably share locations. When your mama didn't come home at night, you wasn't thinking about where your mama was? Or is that common behavior from your mom? Because she be out there doing other stuff. So Daniel was right? That she out here being a hoe? Like, you didn't know that? As much as your mama talks, and as much as your mama wants to play victim, you didn't believe that? You didn't know what was going on. I call bullshit. That's what I call. And this is a part of the production from them. We even found out that Lisa claims, I got pregnant for the first time we had sex. Now, in the previous video, Laura was ready to get on Stig and Aviva. Did get on Stig and Aviva for raw dogging and not protecting themselves. Laura, your fellow white woman in your age bracket, did the same thing with the African she was talking to. You think Laura spoke her big belly ass up? No, nothing got nothing to say. We don't have nothing to say about that. And it's just interesting to me, as much as I don't like Daniel, that there was a lot of blaming, right? And now we have this new guy. And I'm sorry, before I continue, let me just dial it back a little bit and just rewind. Lisa claimed that she had an ectopic. Lisa claims that she had an ectopic pregnancy, which is a pregnancy that is outside of the uterus. Now, she also mentioned that, and I'm looking at ectopic pregnancy to make sure that I understand what it is, because, I can't get pregnant. And if I can't get pregnant, then I should probably study somewhere and get paid for it. We find out that she mentioned that she did have a partial hysterectomy, and she never believed or thought that she could get pregnant. And from my understanding, when I was doing just a tidbit of research, and as someone who just, I am no doctor, I'm no professional in that field. I have taken some classes, and I was going that direction before things shifted in my younger life. From what I remember, there are very few things that are probably impossible to happen, but having a partial hysterectomy or even a full hysterectomy, I'm seeing comments online independent of this show that is not possible. And I'm going to believe what I'm seeing from people who claim to be surgeons and who do this, from this little bit of research that I just did, that yo ass at 52 was not getting pregnant with only half a hysterectomy in this situation. And also, given how painful that I think I remember ectopic pregnancies are, because of the location of where the eggs and the fetus is and all that, it's not like a regular pregnancy. Like, you don't just walk around with the baby hanging out outside your uterus. Like, And you're someone who already is sensitive to anything that disturbs your natural state of being, I call bullshit. And another thing is, I saw Daniel literally have no reaction to her mentioning this. He was calm the entire time. Not calm and confident like I mentioned about Stick in that video. When he was confronted with allegations, Daniel was already prepped. And when we get Ty coming into to introduce himself, Daniel was like, "Hey, what's up?" Here's the thing: African men, they preach a lot of misogyny, and there's a lot of jealousy, and there's a lot of rules. And Daniel was like, you need to be careful because she's transitioning my wife. And Ty said, well, are you threatening me? He says, don't threaten, you just need to respect the values. But it wasn't like Daniel was protecting his stake. It wasn't like, let me be clear with you, but that's my wife. So if I see you, it's gonna be hands on sight. It wasn't any of that. It wasn't even that for necessarily Ty. Ty just said, I'm gonna marry her, we're gonna be together. What's Ty's motive for being with Lisa? Let's question that. What's his motive? Because I agree with Daniel when he mentioned that Ty was someone who saw cracks in my relationship, and he came in to expand those cracks and break us up so he can get in there for himself. So now we don't have this Lisa scamming Daniel, and Daniel scamming Lisa. Now we got Daniel and Ty both. It's a throuple of scams. It's a throuple of scams. And then Faith think that she's a voice of reason, where it's like, oh, I seen the messages between the two of them, Ty and Lisa, and I approve with Ty. Ty has 75% of my approval. Daniel has none. Bitch. I do believe, as someone who does not have children, I do have a mother and I have a father. If they were to be dating and to introduce me to people, I would want my opinions to be heard, because of course I'm mindful of my parents' feelings, right? And I'm mindful of the fact of I want them to be in the best relationship that's going to bring them joy and peace for them. So, I would like to say that there is a certain level of approval or agreement that holds weight with my parents, my mother and my father. However, in this situation, as relates to Faith, it really fell upon mute ears. It fell upon mute ears because there was nothing that really kind of led to that, and the way you had the opportunity to hold your mother accountable based off what you already have filmed on the show from the very beginning, we never saw any reconciliation or accountability regarding that. And so, Lisa wanted to address that her meeting Ty and talking to Ty was not cheating, and Elise came out and said that is cheating. There is a certain level of emotional cheating, and I have to agree with Elise. There's a tricky thing when you're going to be talking to somebody else about your relationship. And this also came up in Javon and Anna's situation earlier on, because Javon was talking a lot about Anna and his relationship to another woman who he had already happened to sleep with or cheat with. There's a fine line with that. A very fine line. Because there's a part of you that has to be aware that if you're going to be talking about your partner, your person, to someone else, you have to question the motives of their interest in your devastation, in your relationship chaos. Unless, of course, you're looking for that. Lisa is someone, in my opinion, who's always looking for validation, and she's looking for advocates for her victimization. So she doesn't see this cheating because she had a selfish goal in mind, but it's absolutely cheating. Because if you were done with Daniel, then be done with Daniel. And talk to whoever the fuck you want to talk to. But Daniel wasn't wrong when it's like, yeah, you were out here cheating, you were talking to other people, and not only that, you're giving all the information to someone for them to manipulate your mind to break up with me. He had a point. He absolutely had a point. And at least, said that and also agreed with that. And then we get into where, Laura did bring up a good point that she said, tell Lisa, you just can't escape from one guy and go to another and then try to use that as motivation to marry that person, and then be like, I'm also keep finding my way back to Daniel and blaming him for it. That's just not how that works. So there was a little bit. We didn't get too far, but let me tell you something. When Laura said that, the real Lisa came out, cut her off, raised her voice, and got very defensive. I said, boom, there she is. Somehow the blue contacts aren't crying no more. Somehow the tear ducts dried up real quick. I mean, her makeup wasn't even smeared or wet at all. I said, there's the real Lisa. Got it. This is all a scam and a scheme to, I don't know, to be on the show or to grift or to, get sympathy. I think that's what it is. It's all something to get sympathy and to do the whole vilification of an African. We've already been there with Angela and Michael. We've already been there with Kim and Usman. We've already did this. We do this pretty often on Catfished. We do this pretty often on all of these things where the Africans this is not a situation where you're going to get the rallying up of the Americans to come after this African man because you were already disingenuous when you got involved in this bullshit in the first place. And you wanted this to happen to keep this shit up, to try to elevate your social standing or your financial standing in this world. Miss me with that. Anyway, I don't have shit else to say about these two. I don't want to see Lisa and Daniel. I don't want to see Lisa and Ty. I damn sure don't want to see Faith. This was a lot. Their storyline throughout the season was extremely inauthentic, extremely fake, and I could be wrong. But I know that I'm entitled to my opinion, bitch. That's my thoughts and opinions. So I want to hear yours in the comments section, and I really want to know, do you agree with what I had to say, or do you disagree? What did I miss? And if I missed it, tell me what your thoughts are. Am I off the mark with this situation? Her sister, Lisa's sister, has came out repeatedly and said that Lisa's a liar. Apparently, Lisa does not have one child. She has two children. Don't know what the second one ever is. And it's interesting to me that here we go again with our new fiance, the tell-all to where we meet Lisa's best friend, Juna, but Juna wasn't a part of the tell-all. Like, I would like to have her Juna's perspective because she was already introduced. Is Lisa and Juna even still friends at this point? Especially considering that Juna also was part of providing financial resources to Lisa and to Daniel. So the fact that I got no update regarding that, I thought was a miss on 90 Day Fiance to tell all. Even if it was the fact that she declined. We never got any updates with that. So, all right, I'm going to let y'all go. Y'all be safe out there and take care. And I look forward to talking to y'all about my thoughts and opinions on something else very soon. Take care.